Hi, this is Belén Diez and you're watching the E-volve show. And today we're gonna be talking about how to succeed in the corporate world. I think it's gonna be a conversation that you're gonna really enjoy. For that reason, we have a career coach and her name is Tiffany Uman. Tiffany Uman is a career strategic coach and she helps young professionals fast track their success and crush their career path goals. Hi, Tiffany, how are you?
I'm very good. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here. We've
Thank
had
you for
some
having me.
difficulties. I don't know if you guys will hear a little bit of an echo, but we're gonna have to record like this today because we're having some troubles with the speakers, or I don't know exactly what is not working, but we're gonna go with it. So Tiffany, why don't you tell us a little bit what you do in your business and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a career strategy coach, and this is something I officially embarked on more recently within the last year officially. Up to that point, I've also been in the corporate space working as a senior director at my Fortune 500 for over 12 years. And it's really through my experience there and the fact that I achieved 7 promotions in under 10 years time that it really helped me gain significant insights and learnings into what it takes to excel really rapidly, and just a lot of the things that we're not really prepared for when we transition from school to full-time work that can really set you up for the most success. And so I kind of got to the point in my career where I was reflecting back and realized there's so much that I can do at this stage to pay it forward, give back, and really help many young professionals as they're starting in their career in those first critical years, to help them be best positioned for whatever they want to achieve. And that really inspired me to officially embark on my career strategy coaching, like I said, in the last year, which was something I was informally doing most of my time in my corporate work. But I felt like, you know what, now was the time. And it just so happened to overlap with the pandemic, which in a way was very interesting timing because there was so much more talk about, you know, career changes, layoffs, furloughs, and all of that. So I really felt like in a way it was all kind of meant to be at this one time to hit the ground running and help as many young professionals as I can through my coaching. And what I really focus on in my coaching, like I said, is setting you up for the most success, especially ensuring you're avoiding blind spots that can hurt your progression, and ultimately do it in a way that will fast track you achieving your career goals.
Yeah, that's so important because, as you say, like, I feel like nobody teaches these things at school, and you finish school thinking like you have to find a job and all these things, but you don't even know how to do an interview. You don't know how to do a resume. Like, you don't know, like, if you want to be this in this position, you don't know what you have to do before that. So it's so valuable that you actually have that experience so you can teach
Yes.
young professionals how to get there faster, right?
Oh yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, I think what really differentiates my style of career coaching and career strategy coaching specifically is that I'm coming from the shoes of the young professionals that I'm helping. You know, I know a lot of coaches in the space who I admire and respect with what they do are coming a lot from the HR perspective, have had years in recruitment, which is excellent, but I'm really coming from the shoes of the employee who's been on the other side and knows what it actually takes to move up that corporate ladder, if you will, through my been there, done that experience. So I think that's what I know my clients really appreciate a lot from me, because all of the guidance and advice and coaching that I provide is very concrete, very actionable, and also very relatable.
Yeah, and I think it's just great what the work that you do, because it's like nowadays also we have this environment, or maybe it's from where I hear with the people that I hang out with, like more entrepreneurial, like you have your own business and things like that. So I think it's going to be super valuable for all the audience that are watching today to be like, okay, let's see, if you have a career in the corporate, how can you like accelerate your success, right? Like
Absolutely.
that's the
I'll even give
important.
you a concrete example, right? When a big thing in setting yourself up for success in your career is confidence and really building up that confidence. And often what I'll see even amongst my clients is that there's limiting beliefs that they're holding on to, and they don't even realize it. It's impacting them to the degree that it is, so much to the point where they almost have certain timelines in their mind as to when they should achieve something. But that's where I come in and I play devil's advocate and I push and challenge them to help them realize, hey, you know, that timeline isn't really founded in anything. And it's almost our own limiting beliefs that's making us feel like we need to stay in a role longer, or that, you know, we're not ready yet, or anything along those lines. So that's just one really small example, but a pretty important one of just from a mindset standpoint, how that can make a huge difference in terms of your career trajectory.
Yeah, and so important with what you're saying, like how important to hire a coach to support you with that, right? Like how can a coach support you or young professionals uh, when they finish school and they're looking for a job? How can you support them with your coaching? I amount with what you were saying, like the mindset, because that's kind of like the biggest
Yes.
part of it. So
Yes.
you have a strategics and mindset. What is the combination of your coaching?
Oh, definitely. So there's really a few key pillars I zone in on in my coaching, and again, it's really based off my own firsthand experience of having lived through it. And honestly, I wish I had a coach like me when I started, because I had to learn so much of these lessons the hard way and on my own, and I just never want anyone else to have to do that, especially if it's going to end up taking you longer to get to where you want because you don't have someone that can help just fast track that success and that growth path. And so, what I would say is, I have four key pillars, in fact, that really feed into all of my coaching. And the first is a huge one on mindset. It's really about fueling a career growth mindset. A lot of that's on the confidence, self doubt, limiting beliefs, making sure that there's nothing holding you back, whether consciously or subconsciously. But the other big piece is also gaining career clarity at that stage and what that can look like for you, right? It's not about defining one path for success. It's going to be very individualistic depending on who I'm supporting and what the context is for that given client. But it's just to know what steps you need to put in place and how to break down roadblocks that will keep you from achieving that. The
Mhm.
second pillar I focus in on a lot is solidifying your distinct personal brand, because everything really stems from that. And by the way, that's really important once you're also in your job search. So if you're transitioning from school to work, but then also carrying it through when you're in your actual roles, how that can help you get ahead further and faster. And that could be, you know, how are you leveraging this to make an impact, build your legacy, create really strong relationships that will support you and help you get further ahead and all of that. The third key pillar I focus on is mastering your communication, which is hugely important in what could make or break your progression. So this is everything from, you know, self-presentation, how you put yourself forward, to the importance of perception, not taking things personally, knowing how to speak up with confidence even towards senior leaders, public speaking, navigating conflict and internal politics, which I wish I could promise this are things that you would never have to deal with, but it just is kind of the name of the game when you're working in a company or corporate setting. And also how to really position yourself well for formal performance reviews. This is probably the lens where I see a lot of the blind spots happen, where there's just a lot of things that aren't happening properly that can keep young professionals in their roles longer than they need to be. And then the fourth and final pillar that I focus on is achieving work-life balance. Because at the end of the day, you could have all of that other stuff, but if you're compromising your well-being in the making, it's not going to allow you to have sustainable success, and that will really catch up to you. So I'm a big believer of learning those best practices and skills sooner than later, so that you can literally build on those and help them to help you as you grow in your career. And this is coming from someone who at the early stages had very, very little work-life balance, and I don't regret those days. They were not the best, and I never want anyone to have to struggle through that when there's proven best practices I use to this day as a mom with kids and working full time and having my coaching to manage it all. So there are things that work and work really well the more you practice them.
Yeah, wow, that's so incredible. Like, I think it's so valuable, all the things that you do. Because seriously, like, I feel like, well, I wish I will hire you when I started. Because it's one
Me
of those
too.
things, like, nobody tells you what to do. Even, you know, when you feel like your parents are giving you advice or things, like, it's not really, it's not coming from a professional, it's not coming, what you were saying, like, you already been there. There is no need to be there like longer waiting for a new job or waiting for a promotion. Like, if you learn all these skills and you put them in practice, you can actually accelerate and be where you want to be. So I think
Yes.
it's just amazing. Like, I hope all of you guys who are watching, if you are in the corporate world, like, just come visit Tiffany's website, because I think she has a lot of valuable information for you. So
Thank you
one
so
thing,
much.
yeah, of course, one thing that it comes to my mind that I have in my notes, like, so how, what will be some tips that you can give to the audience about like how to find clarity for your career goals? How do you plan those things?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think step one, this might sound a little obvious, but a lot of people just don't do it, is actually set goals. Like put them down on paper, get something outlined for you. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a role exactly, but if it's more abstract, if it's things that you want to see for yourself or how you want to feel in your work, whatever that looks like, try to get that down so you're actually plotting it out. The other thing to pair with that is try not to look too long term, right? We often kind of hear that question, which I hate, by the way. Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? But that is one, it's a really long time from now. And two, it's just not very relevant anymore. Things are changing so quickly, and you need to be able to adapt and adjust really quickly. So I'm much more the school of thought of try to develop those short to midterm goals and go from there, because everything you do today directly impacts where you go tomorrow, which by default will help you in the longer term. But you need to have that level of consciousness of what you're putting into place now in a very strategic and intentional way that will help you get to where you want to go. And I'm talking even very like short-term goals, like within the next 3 months, not even just like within the next 5 years. So it's really about having that balance and learning how to goal set very effectively to help you understand what's needed to get there, what might be standing in your way, and how, for me as your coach, can support you on breaking down those roadblocks and giving you the proper guidance to push past that faster. The other thing I would say when we're talking about career goals in general is really try to do that level of self-reflection. I think for a lot of young professionals and ones that I've spoken to many a time, we're sometimes thought that we have to do things a certain way because society is telling us to do this, or we grew up thinking a certain way. But at the end of the day, you really want to do that internal work and truly identify, well, what will make you happy? Like with the background that you have, maybe the studies that you've done, and even if it's not the studies you've exactly done, you don't have to go into the career that exactly matches what you've studied. I've seen plenty of pivots that ended up in a very different dynamic than where they started from a study standpoint. But all that said, if you can do that internalization and really identify what's important for you, what are your driving values, that will be important to mirror in a company that you're choosing, or an industry that you're choosing, or a type of function that you're choosing. That's normally a good starting point. And I'd say my final tip is, it's okay to not have it all figured out. And that's honestly part of the fun when it comes to careers. You know, you're going to test and learn, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail at things, but that's going to really help give you learnings and better insight as to what you do want for yourself. So really lean into those moments instead of using them as fear factors and holding you back. Because I know, for instance, in my own particular case, my biggest professional growth moments were the ones where I was super uncomfortable and put in very new positions that I was nervous about, but I had the mindset of, let's do this, let's go all in, take a bet on myself, and show up for myself.
Yeah, that's true. Because sometimes, like, you don't feel comfortable doing something, but that's the thing that you have to do, right? Because one of the
Exactly.
things that you were saying, like, so uh, the to be clear, to find your values, I think is so important. And I feel like we don't do those things. Like, you will look for a job and you will look for something that, or is like close to your house, or is because of the payment, or is because of this, but
Ah,
it's not really aligned to who you are or what you want to offer. So it's very interesting,
agreed.
that perspective that
Yeah.
we don't
And
really
it
take.
honestly, exactly. And it's almost that much more important because when you're in school, let's say, it's pretty black and white what you need to do to succeed, right? You know, you do your studies, you pass your exams, you do your group projects, whatever it is, you get graded, and you pretty clearly know if you've done well or not. But when you get into the real world, workforce, corporate world, that goes away. And so you really need to be true to yourself of what's going to drive you, what's going to motivate you, knowing that you won't have as much of that constant clarity. And that's also where my coaching is really, really insightful and helpful, because it's about helping you to get that clarity along the way in context where it's not as readily available anymore compared to a school setting. That's one of the key shifts that I often see even amongst my clients. That's been a big adjustment for them when they make that change, and don't want it to work against them in any way.
Yeah. And that, all of that, it helps you to be happy with your job and your day a day, right? Like, it's so important to don't just choose a job, just a random job. Just find something that you're passionate about. So that
Yes.
brings me to the next question, that is like, so how do you know when you have failed your career path? And if not, how do you change it?
Mm. Yeah, well, a lot of it goes back to what we were just saying. If you're really trying to build out those goals, and if you find that you're working well towards them, and that's still bringing you the motivations and drivers in your career, maybe what motivates you is, financial stability, relationships, feeling challenged and stimulated. And if you, let's say, feel like you're getting that with your current path, and that you're going to continue getting that, well, that's already a good indicator based off that internal work that you're in the right direction. Um, but let's say, you're trying and you're moving, and you're just feeling a bit of like internal resistance, like something doesn't feel right. It's a simple advice, but it's a really important one. Trust your gut. And, I even coach my clients on this, on, knowing when an offer is right for you and when it's not right for you. Like, how do you even know that without burning bridges, or feeling like, if I don't take this, is this going to really hurt me in the long run, and vice versa? And you need to be really true to yourself, because no one else is going to do that for you. And when you see there's maybe that resistance or clash with what you hope to feel, and the feeling piece is a really important one, but hope to feel at these different stages in your career, and there's a bit of that misalignment, that's normally a chance to kind of reflect. And that could be maybe doing more homework within your current context or current company, and really seeking out different opportunities within that context you're in already. Or it might very well drive you to pivot entirely to a different company, a different industry, something different altogether. And no one can really make that call for you. It has to come from you. But when you do that type of internal work, and that's exactly something that I love helping you on and helping young professionals on, it's a pretty magical thing, because it's the point where work doesn't feel like work anymore, because it's just a natural extension of you and who you are.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah, I think like that's the best feeling, right? When you're working, but it doesn't feel like work. And I think it's hard for a lot of people who don't do that work that you're saying, like the internal works, because then they end up doing jobs. I remember we have one of the women in our audience, she asked me like, well, I'm not very happy with my job. What should I do? So I think it's very interesting what you just mentioned. Like sometimes you don't even have to change careers or change companies. Maybe in the same company there is a better fit for you, and if you can
Yeah.
do your potential there, maybe even the company is happier with you in another position.
That's it. And I can add on that too, just to give the audience a really concrete example. If they're having that sentiment, right? If you're feeling like, oh, I'm not really very happy in this role, or I'm not happy in this role anymore, and thinking I need to move to a different company, like that's the answer. Before you do, really try to do what I'm about to recommend. Firstly, make yourself a table, and on the left-hand column, have what you enjoy about your current work. What do you actually get that happiness from or fulfillment from, and list all of that down. In a way, it could be the pros of your work, but I like positioning more of what is really driving some of that happiness that you have, or the things that, at least it's not happiness, at least the things that you like or appreciate from that. And then in the right hand column, you mark in everything that you would want to change, and really try to be very honest with yourself. Maybe it's things about the company, maybe it's things about yourself as well, and try to get that down. And then suddenly you're going to have a mapping as to, for whatever comes next, what that should look like. What's going to help address the things that you actually really enjoy, and then the things that need to be changed. And that could be your roadmap, whether it's looking in a different company, in a different opportunity altogether, or possibly using this as a foundation to go back in your current company or current context and see if there's opportunities internally that can better meet the needs of what you want changed. And that could, in fact, help you to feel happier and more fulfilled in an environment that already knows you, where you've already established yourself to a degree, and can probably accelerate your growth as well.
Yeah, and that comes again to that clarity, right? Like to just sit down and rethink, like what do you want, what feels good at your job, what it doesn't. I just, with all this conversation, and it's just coming, when I used to work in corporate, I was working in a marketing department for a big company. And yeah, I never stopped to think these things. I was kind of like, apply for this job, you're gonna get this money, maybe they're gonna give you another position, and you're gonna move forward, but you don't even know if that's the path that you want. So I think it's like incredible, all this information that you're giving us today, because sometimes we don't even, they're there, but we don't think about them, right? It's what you were saying.
Yeah,
It feels like
big
so
time.
simple, right? But how many of us, we haven't even think about those things.
Yeah.
So Tiffany, why don't we talk a little bit to wrap up with our conversation about your services and maybe the freebie that you have for all the audience who are watching today?
Yes. Sure, I would love that. So, maybe just to start quickly for everyone who is tuning in, I know Bilen answered before that you could always check out my website as well, which gives you even more information about me and my services. It's www.tiffanyuman.com. And if you are on Instagram, I also highly encourage you to check out my page at tiffany.uman, because I drop valuable content there every single week for free, all about career strategy and setting you up for success. So I would absolutely love to see you there. And if you do join me there, shoot me a DM, introduce yourself, let me know that you discovered me through this interview. I'd love to chat. And so maybe diving into my services. So I have several different ones. I would say I have more on the one-to-one level, which is really my most customized type of coaching program, very much inspired by those 4 pillars that I mentioned before: the fueling a career growth mindset, personal branding, communication, and work-life balance. I also have my group coaching program called the Career Success Fast Track. That's my signature program that is running right now. And I have another cohort that will be starting in the month of February. And this is a really deep dive program as well, very comprehensive framework, also inspired by those same pillars, in addition to some other amazing bonuses that I include, all about LinkedIn, resumes, navigating your way in a new job or a new role altogether, plus a lot of additional things I love to throw in to absolutely bring the value. So that's the Career Success Fast Track group program. And then I also do offer on-demand power hours with me, which are 60-minute one-to-one sessions that allow us to go really deep on one specific topic that you'd like more strategic guidance on. So that's just a top level view of my 3 services. And of course, if you have any questions on them, feel free to reach out to me directly, whether on Instagram, or even you can email me as well, tiffanyuman@tiffanyuman.com. And finally, yes, I do have an exciting freebie I wanted to share with you all. And I'm super excited about this. So essentially, in just a couple of weeks, on February 11th, I'm going to be hosting a live free masterclass all about how to fast track your career success. So it's going to be a nice segue out of today's conversation, where I'm going to be really spilling the beans on how I achieved 7 promotions in under 10 years, going into the biggest mistakes that young professionals make that hold them back. And I'm also going to give you a much closer look into my proven 4-step framework that has helped my clients land promotions, new jobs, interviews, internal transfers, and double-digit % salary increases, all during the pandemic and working from home to boot. So you definitely don't want to miss it. I believe Milen is going to link it for you as well, so that you'll be able to register. My pre-registration is open now, so I highly recommend you do it sooner than later so that you can secure your spot. And I would love to see you there.
Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for being here today. It was a total pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I hope this was helpful for everyone. Please don't be a stranger. Reach out to me anytime. I would absolutely love to connect.